All right, we are back live on the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. Carter and Richie both out today. How is everybody doing this evening? Just figured we got a show packed for you tonight. Just a few housekeeping things. Just got done with Steel City. Week one is fastly approaching. We are going to be doing live streams all day. Watch the game with me. Maybe Richie and Carter will be jumping in on those. Those guys vacation, getting back into school, all that fun stuff. So, with that being said, the goal for today 25 likes on the video. Just a little small personal goal of mine. Try to get this thing boosted up through the algorithm. Trying to break through. That is what we're trying to do today. But with that being said, hit that like and subscribe. Help us grow this thing, and we will get to the show. So that's what it is. I'm Andre, and Richie and Carter will probably be back a little bit closer to the season. Week 0 is coming up. This is one of the things that we are trying to get to. Football season having a wonky, spring window, the transfer portal, all of that fun stuff. So we're gonna get to it. Gonna get after it today. So first topic, JD has released his college football predicting the 12-team field. We'll just start it off. He's really high on LSU, the Tigers. That is something to be said there. I'll name off the teams. Alabama, Georgia in a first round matchup. I find that very interesting. And LSU with a bye. Oregon with a bye, Oregon or Texas with the bye. Sorry, I misspoke there. But Oregon playing JMU. He's got Baylor in the college football playoff, which I find very interesting. Clemson, Ohio State, of course, Texas A&M, and Penn State, Notre Dame. He's got LSU winning the whole thing. I don't know if I agree with him on that, even though I'm wearing a Tigers hat, but it is something to be said. He's got LSU as his overall champion. Oregon, I agree with being in the college football playoff. Ohio State being in there. And then a very interesting quote today between Julian Sain and Lincoln Kienholz. Ryan Day said, it's too close to call. Coach Ryan Day, they both had good moments. Joe, what's up, brother? Joe's in the house. Flying solo today, Joe, but appreciate you. Hit that like and subscribe button. Ryan Day on the quarterback battle they have going on in Columbus. The competition continues. Coach Day said they both had good moments and they're growing. I will say I was pleased with the progress. It's going to be right down to the wire, as Ryan Day says, with Lincoln Kienholz. I know that it's very controversial. Ohio State, the last couple of years, has had to deal with the quarterback controversy coming into camp. Appreciate you hanging in there with me, Joe. And we're also live on TikTok, but I think Ryan Day's comments on this are very interesting. I think it's to keep both guys engaged, to try to get the best out of both guys. Some of the things that I know unpopular, but what Zach Smith reported that Tavion St. Clair, being a true freshman, is a year away. So that is something to be said there. That is what it is. It's between Lincoln Kienholz and Julian Sain. How are they going to bounce back? They're there's a lot of prominent programs that are breaking in first-year starters. We'll just look at the college football playoff bracket. Oregon, new quarterback. Georgia, new quarterback. Alabama, new quarterback. Aller comes back. Klubnik comes back. Ohio State, new quarterback. Notre Dame, new quarterback. LSU, Nussmeier coming back for the year. I just feel like we're at this point to where it's going to matter to have an experienced quarterback going into this thing. I don't see how it's one of those things that experience matters. I feel like it does. Also on this college football bracket, he's got JMU in there. I don't know what James Madison is going to be. The Duke's second-year head coach. They stumbled a little bit. Brian Vincent and Louisiana Monroe beat JMU last year, and I believe it was on the road at JMU. Monroe's athletic director resigned, I believe, at the beginning of this season. I think I heard somebody say, a source close to it said that it was a money deal. He didn't want to have to deal with cutting the fat around the program, which I totally get that. It's one of those deals that with this new rev share model, some of these universities just can't compete at the same thing. Like Monroe, Texas are not playing the same sport. I mean, there are certain group of 5 programs that have committed to football, but I hate to single out Monroe on this one. I hate to single out some place like Wake Forest like this. If you go back and watch, Wake Forest throughout the whole entire year, it didn't look like it was even the same thing. Northwestern's putting a lot of money into facilities for what I don't know. Northwestern hasn't been competitive a couple years removed since Pat Fitzgerald. We all know how that tenure turned out. But Baylor, I think Dave Aranda, just seeing him on this graphic, Dave Aranda's got to have a big year at Baylor because I think the pilot light is lit on him as well. But you got to think the first year that Baylor, that he took over at Baylor, you might have to correct me on this one, chat, but he took him to the Big 12 championship game, I do believe. So that's just something to keep in the back of the mind. And I also think the Brian Kelly contingent at LSU is going to get restless if they can't get over the hump this year. I think they absolutely need to get to the college football playoff. I think it's imperative, or I think it could smell disaster down there in the Bayou. Texas, no shock there. Clemson, no shock. It's going to be a very interesting college football playoff field. I think the universities that have quarterbacks coming back, like Penn State, Clemson, and LSU, I'm not shocked that they are betting favorites to try to come out and take this thing. It's an interesting endeavor. And one university that's not in here that I think needs to be in here is the University of Oklahoma. Oklahoma, I think, really needs it to make the college football playoff for all intensive purposes. I think Alabama making it with DeBoer is very critical too. And also not to say anything about the Plains down there at Auburn with Hugh Freeze. I know he's a very divisive figure. They had the opportunity to hire Deion Sanders. If you look at their records, there was a couple games difference in between them. Deion is I think 13-12. Hugh Freeze is 11-13. So as far as Auburn, that is something that they gotta push for, and I think they gotta push for it in a major way. Here we go. We got Joe in here. I think OSU has to prove they're as good as their rankings show me. I think I had LSU at 6. I have Texas at 1, UGA 2, Clemson 3, Alabama 4, Indy 5, Penn State 6, Oregon 7, OSU 8, Miami 9, Utah 10. Joe, what are we doing with Utah, brother? Utah, after last year, now I think Kyle Whittingham can bounce back, but Utah, the number 10 team in the country, I'd like Miami at 9. I think Miami, to me, is on a prove-it deal. Maybe bounce Miami for LSU. Well, here's the thing. I think LSU is one of those teams that you got to see what they're going to be on defense. I think that's what it comes down to. But Texas is also breaking in Arch to be the full-time starter. I think that there's a amount of pressure there. I'm thinking of conference perks. Yeah, I get that. I think Alabama at 4 is – I think Alabama is going to shock some people because I think Kane Womack, and they lost almost 40 guys their first year. So I think as long as they can retool and rebuild, I think Clemson, if Klubnik takes the next step, I think Clemson's going to be outstanding in what they have. But for the Utah pick, yeah, I get that. Let me pull up the rankings real fast. In the coaches poll, I would be hard pressed not to throw a little South Carolina in there with Lenora Sellers. I know some people aren't particularly going to like that, but on some of those teams outside of the top 10, I like Illinois. I like Arizona State. I think Ole Miss is going to contend more than what people think, and I think Florida is running in there. And I'm not going to say Tennessee's dead in the water, but I'm also going to say that Tennessee is probably going to fall out of the top 25. That's kind of where I'm at. I'll be curious to see what SMU does this year rolling into the season. Texas A&M is the up and down. I think Texas A&M is one of those teams that a lot of people pick them to make the college football playoff, but Texas A&M ends up at that. They get stuck right there at that 9-3. Florida is having Lagway injuries. Yeah, I know he's to believe to be in a walking boot. That's something to be said there. But I think that you're going to have a really hard time because this is one of the things I don't like about week 1 because they have at the bottom of the coaches poll, they have Texas Tech, BYU, Kansas State. The only outlier in this that they elevated was Arizona State, obviously because they won the conference last year. Do I think Kenny Dillingham's doing a great job? Yes. But DJ here does not have them in the college football playoff. I would be hard-pressed to say that they have set the Big 12 up better than they did the ACC, with the Big 12 having 4 to 5 teams in there because Texas Tech sneaks in there at 24, BYU at 23, and then Iowa State and Kansas State at 21 and 20. I think that is something to be said there. There's I wouldn't say biased, but Kansas State and Iowa State are playing week 1. What's Joe got here? The scary thing is, as an ND fan, they could easily start 0-2 and don't think they'll get in the running get in by running the table at 10-2. See, that is the tough part with Notre Dame. See, what helped Notre Dame's last year, their strength of schedule, is after they played Texas A&M went on a tear and won like 8 or 9 in a row, ended up subsequently losing at Auburn. And that, I think, elevated Notre Dame. But also that was something that helped SMU last year when they played Pitt. That was 7-0. And they played – SMU ended up beating Pitt. And that Pitt win elevated SMU into the college football playoff. They didn't take into account that Pitt ended up going like 0-5 after they lost, or 0-4 after they lost to SMU. And I was at the Clemson Pitt game where Narduzzi and the defense just didn't jive at the end there because Klubnik ripped off like a 50-yard run. I was sitting in the opposite end zone, and there goes that man. And they were throwing at the end zone to win the game, and Pitt fought so hard in that game to try to beat Clemson, and they just couldn't get it done. There was a lot of sad folks that day, and after the game, there was a lot of folks that, you know, I seen a lot of the players. I was down and around there. There was a lot of guys that were, their number one complaint was playing time. So that was something that played into the factor. And I think that the team chemistry, from what I observed after the Clemson game by Pitt, was a lot of negativity. Some people can agree with that. Some people can disagree with that. But I know what my eyeballs told me. So that is something there. But also on the rankings, Michigan sliding in there at 14. I know we're going to talk about this ad nauseum. This is a fine day, but on this Wednesday, but we're almost there. We're almost to where there's no more lists. There's no more of that, to where they're going to strap it up and play. That is something that I'm eager to see. I think the Kansas, Iowa State, I just can't believe they would take a conference game overseas. I just do not like that. But I mean, they did it last year, so that's something. Joe here, I think it's going to be Clemson playing somebody in the final. Yeah, I like Clemson. Ohio State is a bit of a prove it to me at this point, being ranked this high. I also think that they hyped up this game, Texas, Ohio State at the Shoe, big noon kickoff, the big nooner. That is something to be said there. Joe, again, Texas is very confident while they're fans. Well, yeah, I mean, if you're Texas, your seasons, the last couple, have ended horrifically in the playoffs. I think, what was it, 2 years ago, they were thrown at the end zone, and they've been in the red zone every time. They've had a chance to win every playoff game that they've been in, just for the simple fact of they had Quinn Ewers thrown at the end zone against Washington, couldn't get it done, and then Sark called a toss play that got stuffed, and then Jim Knowles shows Texas a look that they've never seen before, and the Scoop and Sawyer happens. So that is something to be said there with Texas. They allegedly have a $40 million roster. I'm sure Sark isn't thrilled that number's out there. A lot of these universities, when it comes to NIL, don't want those numbers out there. And I get it, because people will just say how ridiculous this is. I can't blame them, but it is what it is, and that is the landscape of college football. But we're coming up on the end of the first segment here. If you're watching out there on Twitter, come on over to YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. If you're into college football, we got some other things planned. We're going to be doing live streams, watch alongs all throughout the season, but hit that like and subscribe button and help us grow this channel. Here's an interesting quote from Dabo Sweeney, as you see, they had the first undefeated team in 2018 to go 15-0, and his quote says, "I think we're going to have the first 16-0 team, or they're going to try to do it." I think Dabo and Clemson, they've done a good job. They have started utilizing the transfer portal. They've started doing a lot of different things that they normally didn't do. He's got Klubnik coming back. I think that's the big thing when it comes to Dabo. He's got that big week 1 matchup with Brian Kelly and the LSU Tigers. That is, I think that is one of the more interesting dynamics. There's been a lot of stuff going back and forth between the teams. I feel like Clemson is better up front than LSU at this juncture. Some people will say, "Oh, well, how do you know?" I think the guys that Clemson has coming back are going to be really good. I think LSU lost a lot of guys on the offensive line, although they do have a former offensive line coach and the tight ends coach. There's Alex Atkins came over after being dismissed at Florida State, which I contend and I do believe that was Mike Norvell hiding, and I think they made him make decisions he didn't want to do. But I think there's more to that story. Someday that story will get told of the 2024 Florida State team, because with DJU, and I think there was a lot that went into that season that hasn't been told, and I think it'll come out eventually. And some people will look at it and say that's what it is. Yeah, Joe coming in here with the matchups. We got Clemson, LSU, Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Miami, and Iowa State, Kansas State. I just wish they would have kept that Iowa State, Kansas State game in the States. I think looking at the schedule, week 1, although the game times have been set, I do like that. Just looking at week 0, quote unquote, air quotes there, week 0, the Iowa State, Kansas State gets it kicked off. Idaho State goes to UNLV. If I know anything about Dan Mullen, he's going to try to hang 100 on them. Fresno State at Kansas. I believe this is a big. Yeah, I get it. It is probably fun for the kids, Joe. But looking at a little bit of the breakdown of just the couple of games that come forward, the UNLV, but Fresno State, Kansas, I think that's going to be a big recruiting weekend, probably for Lance Leipold and the Jayhawks. Sorry, I almost called them the Hawkeyes. Wrong state. But I think that's a big recruiting weekend because they just got their stadium finished, and with all the upgrades, I think Kansas did a really good job. I don't know why teams do this. I don't know why they play with – there's a handful of teams that I would not schedule week 1. Fresno State is on that list, and Georgia Tech is on that list. No bueno for me. I don't want any part of them. Or Georgia. I mean, Dabo found out last year. Yikes. And then you go to I believe it's a CUSA matchup, Conference USA. Sam Houston versus Western Kentucky. As far as the streaming schedule, I think we might roll some Iowa State, Kansas State, and then maybe some UNLV. Kansas, Fresno State might be up in the air. But probably not on Sam Houston State, although I might throw the old Stanford in there as well, just to see what we have there. Frank Reich and the boys over there They travel out to the Rock, that is Hawaii, for a 7:30 Eastern kick. So, and then we probably won't do any of these during the week games, but there's to be desired there. Although one matchup I do have my eyeball on coming into that Thursday slate is Buffalo at Minnesota. In Buffalo at Minnesota, I'll be interested to see what Houston Stephen F. Austin is. I believe that'll be Houston is one of the teams in the Big 12 I have an eyeball on. That is the Connor Wagman redemption story, I do believe. And then you have Nebraska Cincinnati. So that Thursday slate, not the biggest, but it's football, to say the least. But we will hop out of that and we will jump to, here is an interesting thing that I found that Fox posted: the most passing yards in a game. Patrick Mahomes, 734 yards. David Klingler, haven't heard that name in a while. BJ Simmons, that's under the Mike Leach. Graham Harrell, Geno Smith. Yeah, that's what we got cooking on that end of it. And then also, just to jump back in on the upcoming week 1 slate, a couple other things of contention that I have is Auburn Baylor. Be interested to see how Hugh and the boys on the Plains start on the road. And then Georgia Tech, Colorado. That's competition, but Colorado is one of those we got to see what Colorado is going to be this year. I think they'll be better up front. I think they'll be good in the run game. Hopefully they start running the ball, I would hope. That is something to be said there. Just checking a few things. The NFL very randomly banning smelling salts. I thought that was very interesting to pop in with. That's also just interesting. Then Then we get to the main course, which is week 1 on the college football slate. I was listening to the guys over at MPW Digital. They were listening to, I believe it's like Super Talk Mississippi. Mississippi State is on the road at Hattiesburg. And they were saying that is probably, Mississippi State is a 12-point favorite. I might grab some of the Southern Miss if that line ticks up to 13 or 14. I think I would grab some Southern Miss. And I think one of the other sleeper lines of week 1 is Syracuse catching 14.5 right now. And another one on the noon slate, the Ohio State-Texas game, obviously. I think I'm just going to bet Texas outright instead of taking the 2.5. I think I'm betting Texas outright. And you know what else is funny in this noon slate? Tulane is a 6.5-point favorite at home over Northwestern, which is in the Big Ten. So, yeah. Robert Morris goes to West Virginia. There's no line on that, but I would say Rich Rod by $1 billion. Signetti, Old Dominion. I would say Old Kirk is going to try to score as many as possible. Joe with another comment here. Yeah, I'm out on playing Fresno State week 1. That's just me. I'm not a big fan of that because Fresno State has beat some Power 5 teams in the past. I'm just combing through the slate, like Memphis plays Chattanooga. I would say that's going to be a blowout. Oh, yeah. I hear you on that, Joe. A lot of ESPN Plus action going on for Saturday. And then Iowa State comes back to the States and they play South Dakota State. And then you have the big matchup also at 3:30, Alabama taking on Florida State. Castellanos, like I've said in the past, talking a little smack. That should be interesting. I think that we'll see what they are early. Illinois State, I think, is getting led to slaughter, going down to Norman. We're just Joe. We're just rolling down. I'm looking at the big board as far as interesting lines for Week 1 at the moment. Then you have LSU, Clemson. Clemson is a 4-point home favorite. Michigan, New Mexico, Lambs to slaughter. Michigan is favored by 37. I believe they. And then Ole Miss plays Georgia State. Lane and the boys almost catching 40. That is interesting. Northern Arizona getting led to slaughter. And then we have some Big Ten after dark. 19.5 points for Washington at home against Colorado State. That might be Lambs to slaughter. We'll have to see how much longer the Jay Norvell tenure continues to last up there in Colorado Springs, I believe. And then UCLA taking on Utah. I think both those teams have a lot to prove. Nico's debut, so I think there'll be some eyeballs pinned to that. And that is, they have a full slate Week 1. Cal playing Oregon State. There'll be some eyeballs on that. But Fox and the Big Ten Network got both the late kicks, not the Josh Pate late kick, but they got the late kicks. Washington kicks off at 11 p.m. Eastern, and Utah, UCLA is kicking at 11 also on Fox. And then you got 2 games on Sunday. You got South Carolina, Virginia Tech. I'm sure and that's at Mercedes-Benz Dome. So, but that's not too far. That'll be kind of like a home game, I believe, for South Carolina. Virginia Tech traveling over from Blacksburg. And then the big matchup that I'm sure Carter is going to want to be talking about for weeks to come is going to be Carson Beck taking on CJ Carr, Notre Dame, Miami. That's going to be an interesting matchup. I think I'll be interested to see what South Carolina does, because the last year they went on the road to Kentucky and completely dismantled Kentucky. So Virginia Tech is a 8-point dog in that. And then last year, one of the things that Tim Murray brought up that works at VEASAN, every year last year, a double let me look for you, Joe. Yes, UCLA is at home. Utah is making the trip to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena. So one thing that Tim Murray pointed out last year, every week of the regular season, I think almost was a double-digit dog won at least once each week, a double-digit dog. So we got that to contend. More of the lines will be available closer to the game times. I'm sure you'll have full lines approaching Week 1, but college football kind of set it up nice. still week 0 is kind of what it is. I'm sure some of the coaches probably wouldn't mind like having week 0 because it gives you almost like an extra time. So that is something to be said there. Just trying to see if I missed anything from week 1. I think that Syracuse-Tennessee game is going to get highly, highly interesting. Just pure speculation here. And then Monday night to round out week 1/week 0, Monday night you have TCU taking on North Carolina. TCU on the road. TCU a 3-point road favorite in that. So that's what it is. Tech seems like they've hit that Stanford, Auburn, Wisconsin slide. Yeah, that is something to be said there. I think a lot of those programs as mid to upper, yeah. Stanford and David Shaw. I think once they remove David Shaw and they hire Troy Taylor, I don't think they, a lot of people want to speculate about what went on there. I really don't know. He was just removed as head coach by Andrew Luck, so that's what it is. Over some allegations, we'll see if the true story ever gets told out of that. But ever since Frank Beamer retired, the Virginia Tech has not been what they've been billed as. So I think that Virginia Tech and those folks have they got some stuff to be going. But we'll have to see if they can bounce back. I know Virginia Tech lost their quarterback OC coach Tyler Bowen to Ohio State. He was with Pry down there, and I think Pry brought him with him over from Penn State. So a little bit of retooling, and then also there's a lot of meaning that goes into that South Carolina Virginia Tech game. Obviously, Frank Beamer's son, Sean Beamer, the head coach at South Carolina, leading the Gamecocks over to the Mercedes-Benz Dome to take on a school that he coached at, that I'm sure that is very, very dear to him. So there's a lot of family storyline, whole thing going on. That's going to probably be an emotional Sunday, I would say, for the whole Beamer folks. Joe here with another comment. The opening week's games may be the best of the entire season, not including conference championship week. So, okay, Joe, a little revisionist history here. So every week last year, we thought it was going to be a down week. We had a major upset, like the week that Alabama played Vanderbilt. We all thought that was a snoozer week, and it was the biggest story for about 2 weeks in college football, and that really put Clark Lee, Diego Pavia, all those folks on the map down there at Vandy. Diego obviously getting the next year or an extra year, so we'll be interested to see how that is formulated and formatted. I just really feel like there's some stuff going on. I mean, we can do a little bit of a look ahead. Joe, or maybe I'm just psyched to get it under. Yeah, me too. The off season, as far as how it goes, is just a whole tough time, because a lot of people want to talk recruiting, talk, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. That's just something to be said there. But week 2, there's some. I'm trying to scan this real quick. Indiana plays Kennesaw State week 2. I'm sure that's going to move the needle. Baylor, SMU. Keep an eyeball on that one. Depending on how Baylor looks against Auburn, keep an eyeball on that one. Baylor's got to go on the road to Gerald Ford Stadium in Dallas. And also, here's a thing that I'm going to ask is what's Joe got here? But it sounds like I'm going to need a lot of yeah, I hear you on that. Ohio State has Grambling coming to town. I'm just skimming through it. Florida plays South Florida. Maybe a couple years ago that would be a banger. But what is this? Week 2, Michigan goes on the road to Norman to take on the Sooners, and Vanderbilt goes on the road to get another crack at Virginia Tech. So we'll see. Nothing real compelling right now in week 2. We got some, I would say, Auburn taking on Ball State, killers. Mississippi State has Arizona State come to town. We're going to have to see what the streaming schedule is. I'm sure it's drastically going to change just going into the season. But real quick, if you're watching on Twitter, come on over to YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button, and help us grow this thing. That's one thing that we're trying to do. Got some of the equipment, and if we're doing a trial run before the season starts. We are going to stream the Steelers preseason game. I'm sure that's going to be some compelling TV for some folks. If you want to come hang out, we will be watching that in its totality, and a little bit of just hanging out, shooting the breeze. That is something that's coming up this Saturday. I will be live Saturday night. I believe we're going to start at 6:50 or 7, right on the button, right whenever they kick the 4 panels, 8 laces off. Here's another interesting graphic I seen on the old Fox. Schools with the most Pro Football Hall of Famers. Miami in second with 11. USC leading the way. Notre Dame, Pitt, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, so on and so forth. I really am shocked that that you have Syracuse with 8. Going back and looking at their history, Jim Brown. I would say if Tom Coughlin ever gets in the Hall of Fame, I don't know if Tom Coughlin's in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame, but I would say LSU in a couple of years is probably going to add to their total. USC maybe, but Miami hit it huge in the early 2000s with that 2001 team. I think there's 4 Hall of Famers just off of that team alone. So we'll see. I think Miami of Ohio is going to get one with Roethlisberger. He's getting inducted into the Ring of Honor, and that's just something that we got going. What up, H-Town? Come on over to YouTube. We got some people in there in the chat. We got about 17 minutes of the show left. That's what we got cooking. But Arizona State was 6, LSU, Penn State, UCLA. It'll be interesting to see if we can get USC or UCLA back to national prominence. I find that very interesting, to say the least. Just moving some stuff around here. Here's one of the big things that I find very interesting. Joe Klatt's preseason top 25. Penn State, I get that argument that he wants to make on that. I understand that argument. I totally get why he Penn State defensively is probably going to be elite. Texas got Arch Manning. Just one of the things that we have cooking. Ohio State 3, Clemson 4, Oregon 5, Notre Dame 6, Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Michigan. Joe Klatt giving Michigan a lot of love because I'm assuming he probably is going to go out on a limb and say that Michigan was just missing a quarterback and they'll be right back where they were. Could that be true? We're going to find out how good Michigan is when they head on down to Norman, Oklahoma. That's just what it is and what it's going to be. South Carolina getting a lot of love. Texas A&M, Indiana, Arizona State not getting as much love. They're getting more love. Oh, wow. Yeah, Joe with I'm picking up what you're putting down there. That is something to be said. Iowa in there, Utah on the fringe. We'll have to see how well Kyle Whittingham bounces back after having a complete. I believe they had a lot of injuries. They were decimated. But I still think Texas A&M, I'm hesitant to buy in on them being a college football playoff team, because if you cut it off right there, Joe Klatt has no G5 team in there. So if he cuts it off, your top 12 or who he's saying are going to be in the college football playoff team or in the college football playoff. Miami would be the first team out, because if Kansas State was to win the Big 12, they're in. So I'd put Texas A&M above Michigan. That's the tough one, Joe. What do you do with Texas A&M? Is Texas A&M better than Kansas State? Yes. They play Florida this year. I get it. I know Utah made it. Joe Klatt is big on the Utah side of things. I just look at it, and the first thing that sticks out to me is Miami's the first team out again. I know there's a lot of Mario. They're wanting to circle Coral Gables and throw Mario out of there. I get it. And the interesting thing that I find in this graphic that Joe Klatt has is Alabama absolutely boat raced LSU last year. Absolutely boat raced them at home. So I think that there's something to be said about that. I mean, Klatt must think that LSU is going to be ass kickers on defense, and that's what it's going to be. So that's just something there. I think Georgia will be better than what people think. Klatt's got them at 7. Notre Dame is Notre Dame. They're going to run the ball, play good defense, and if CJ Carr is competent and can stretch the field and throw the ball down the field, Notre Dame's going to be a real tough matchup, because if you go back and look at the 2 deep last year, that the year they made it to the Natty, Notre Dame primarily got there on defense with freshmen and sophomores. They had to have a lot of guys step in and play early, so they have a lot of playoff experience for a young team. Notre Dame does. Oregon, I think Oregon's season ended up disappointing at the end of the year. That Rose Bowl, that's really tough to get that image out of your mind, the absolute shellacking that Ohio State gave them. It's tough. And then Clemson last year just didn't have the dogs to hang with Texas on the road, and they got ousted. One of the other interesting things that I find on Klatt's graphic here is no SMU in this. No SMU. So I think we'll see. I think a lot of people last year, I was one of the people that called it. SMU got absolutely taken to the woodshed by Penn State. Maybe SMU bounces back. Ole Miss sneaks in there. I think the Rebs it'll be what they have on defense that will potentially help them the most. On both sides of the ball. But I think Florida is an interesting case study here, just for he's got them in the middle of the pack. So it leads me to believe that there's going to be an opening possibly for Florida to sneak in there. And then if you just count it out, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. You would have 5 SEC teams in the college football playoff. Well, no, you wouldn't, because Miami and South Carolina would be the first 2 out, because you have to have a G5 in there. So the top 10 or what would make the cut, you have to have a Big 12 team and you got to have a G5 team. Because last year I thought for a little bit, if they didn't rank Arizona State higher, they could have won the Big 12 and not got in. I thought that it was strategically placed on how they moved them up the rankings, but they also had a huge win at home over BYU last year. Joe, I'm assuming he's talking about SMU there. It's just one of the things we got rolling. Illinois, I think Illinois is going to push. They got Ohio State coming to town this year. And that could be a big, big statement game for them. The Illini I think Bielema is at the point to where with Luke Altmaier, a lot of people are kind of lukewarm on him. No pun intended, but Iowa being in there, Baylor being in there, Oklahoma sneaks in. I think Oklahoma will be better than what people think. Like I said, they have Michigan coming to town. They got them at home. So I think that there's something to be said there on that side of it. I just am really looking forward. We'll look forward just a fuzz and go down some of the week 3, but that is Joe Klatt's preseason top 25. We'll roll some games here. Week 3, I know a lot of people are going to be paying attention to North Carolina that normally wouldn't this year because of the Belichick factor. The Jordan, his, I guess, fiance now or whatever. That is just whatever that is. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's why he didn't get an NFL job, because that's that. And I think Arthur Blank maybe played a role into that. Going down week 3, Clemson, Georgia Tech. I don't know how much that moves the needle for the people out there. For the Clemson fans, that's a big point of contention. ABC, they threw Georgia, Tennessee. I'm sure that'll do a big number on ABC. And then James Franklin getting the test of the century with Villanova, which if you ask the average person, they probably didn't know Villanova even played football. But, and I seen another interesting graphic. Miami does not leave the state of Florida until November. All their games are played in Florida. I think their first 6 or 7 games are played in Florida all the way there. But what do we got here? Duke, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know some of these logos. Do you know who 11 and 15 are? Let me see if I can pull that back up for you real quick. Joe? Is this the Joe Klatt? No, that one is. The Joe Klatt. No, that wasn't it. Here, I will find this and we'll get this pulled up and I will get your question answered. 11 and 15. 11 is South Carolina. 11 is South Carolina and 15 is Kansas State. It's probably not the best watching at home on the YouTubes, but what do we got here? Did you hear that ESPN purchased NFL Network? Yes, I did. I had some talks with Richie offline about that. I heard some grumblings from a guy on the radio was talking about when it all came up that, and we'll close the show with this. And by the way, we will be streaming the Notre Dame Texas A&M game at 7:30 week 3. That is a stone cold lock. I know that for sure. Yes, I did hear that ESPN purchased NFL Network or whatever their rights are. So here's where I think NFL Network or the NFL Network they didn't make a mistake because they're going to get buku bucks for it. But me and Richie had talked about this when it first got announced they were not renewing when they were not renewing Sunday Night Baseball. They tore the contract up. What I think the NFL is or what ESPN is going to do on Sunday nights in the summer, they're going to rerun old NFL games, and it will do numbers. Because in the summertime, people will watch, and they'll probably have NFL football on in the summer. They'll probably do a triple header of it. Like they'll play NFC championship games from a year, and then they'll play the Super Bowl at the 8:15 thing. That's what I think they'll probably do. And the NFL Network has this whole library of programming. They just don't know how to deploy it. And I would have to look and see how separate NFL films are from that. But see, ESPN's going to justify the purchase by sticking all that stuff on their ESPN Plus app. This is just pure speculation. I think they're going to stick all those catalogs of games. They're going to stick they'll probably get all the rights to the Super Bowls. They'll have all the playoff. So if you want to go back and relive the 1980 playoff year, you're probably going to be able to, because they're going to be a tab. That's what I would do for the pure football junkies that like the 2020 going to be at the mercy of ESPN now. They totally ruined hockey. Well, see, what they did is ESPN found a niche in hockey and completely circumvented that with ESPN Plus. So the out-of-market games because the NHL's center ice was kind of flopping outside of the diehards. So ESPN said, we'll come in, buy it for this price. We'll put it on our app for $10, and all your hockey fans will come flock over here because it's like $25 cheaper, and we get the subscriber base. Go look at the pricing, but I think that's what they're going to do, kind of in my opinion, if I was ESPN, although I think they'll totally butcher Red Zone. Just watch how that goes. Like the first couple weeks, it'll be all right, and then they're going to start putting ads on it. I'm just telling you. ESPN will butcher Red Zone. Red Zone's one of the highest grossing programs that the NFL Network had. I think it was the highest, and they're going to completely butcher it. Mark my words. But if they leave Red Zone untouched, that would be a win for the people at ESPN, in my opinion. But I think those catalogs of games are going to go on ESPN Plus, and I think in the summertime, starting after the Super Bowl, they might give it until the end of February, but March, April, May, June, July, all the way up until college football starts, I think they're going to play strategic games on Sundays to fill that programming, and I think it'll do better numbers than what baseball was doing, and for the price. What do we got here? They stopped the competition with yeah. Well, the basketball thing is that it's so seasonal, and with the growth of college football, for a lot of, if you're a fan of LSU, because I got the hat on, let's just say you're a fan of LSU. If the LSU boys basketball team plays at 3, let's say call it noon, they're playing in some tournament, and LSU plays at night and you live in Baton Rouge, you might at the tailgate have the game on, but as soon as the football game starts, everybody's flipping over to the football game. I think it would be easier. Yeah, I get that. I get what you're saying, Joe. But this will be the last point, and then we'll get everybody out of here on this fine Wednesday evening. When it comes to ESPN, their issue is they were having they were having a tough time selling the programming because the summertime is the worst programming time for ESPN, basically after college baseball is over, to engage college football fans. But also you're starting to see a trend where college football fans are flipping over to NFL. But I think one thing, a huge recruiting tool that is going totally overlooked, is when they started doing a season back when they did it with Notre Dame originally, and then Notre Dame did it, and they were kind of like, we don't really like that. We don't want that much of the program out there. So they kind of universities kind of stepped away. Well, last year that it premieres this year is that any given Saturday, the Netflix thing, giving a look at every program, which I have not watched it yet. That's on the Saturday night viewing slate. But with that, coupled with, that's a huge recruiting tool. Notre Dame did it last year, a season with Notre Dame, except it was Peacock exclusive. Now, Netflix seen Peacock do that, so they have flipped in there to try to capitalize on that, because I guarantee you Peacock memberships or subscriptions went through the roof, because any college football junkie that's going to get an inside look, because ESPN was dabbling with it when they were doing it throughout the playoffs. So that's kind of what it is. But on a further note, I think ESPN would be smart to put the old games, because they're going to have America's Game, they're going to have NFL yearbooks, they're going to have all that stuff. I think they're going to dump it on their ESPN Plus app, and that's just what it's going to be for the better part of their partnership. So, right. I hear you on that too, Joe. But just keep an eyeball on how that NFL ESPN whole venture turns out. I think it'll be very interesting, and I think that they will throw that stuff on their app, and it'll probably take their app to the next level, to be honest. That's just my opinion on it, because I know me. Whatever, I'm bored in the summertime and I need something to watch, I'm going old games, because there are no new games. So I think ESPN made the right move of punting Major League Baseball, which the NBA and Major League Baseball, I know this rant is going long, but they are single-handedly alienating their fan bases by putting all these games. They're not on TV. I live in Indiana. If you have a certain TV package, I think you have to have Comcast in order to get the Pacers. And a lot of people they don't watch the regular season of the NBA, except the diehards, and what ESPN has on there. So I think they're alienating a portion of their fan base, and that's just what it is. So that's where I leave you. And don't be shocked if ESPN Plus rolls out this whole new construct of what their app is going to be, because I think that's coming, because they are going to dominate. The NFL is king, and as long as they don't touch Red Zone, they throw the old games on the app and all the old documentaries and the NFL film stuff from back in the 70s. Old school football fans are going to watch that, just period. Major League Baseball has a major problem, and I think they're heading for a labor dispute. I think they're going to get locked out. So we'll see where that ends up and where that leaves us. So with that being said, if you're watching on X, hit that like and subscribe button. Come on over. We have an action-packed season coming up. We're just getting started here. Some of the things that have gone on with the show, we've been a little inconsistent. I understand that. I get it why, some people we lost some people, and maybe we'll get them back. Maybe we won't, but we're always looking for an opportunity. We try to bring you some of the most interesting takes in sports. It's something other than ESPN talking heads talking to you. So with that being said, be a friend, tell a friend, help us grow this thing. Joe, you've been a mainstay here. Glad to see you rocking with us. I will take care, and you have a good evening as well. And everybody, pound that like button, trying to get to 25 likes. Have a good night, everybody.